here, K0BJJ, and welcome back to Spotter Jutting. I'm down in the shack today, and we're going to be talking about getting started in ham radio. Now, me being a new ham, I've been licensed in the last 6 months. I believe I got my technician in July, upgraded to general in October. This is a topic that I can speak from pretty recent experience about. Now, I did progress very quickly in the ham radio. I am now the emergency coordinator for the Newton Amateur Radio Association in Newton, Iowa. That has nothing to do with my ham radio experience. It has everything to do with being in public safety related fields for, this will be 11 years now. I've been doing stuff with a private security, including dispatching, and then my 2-year degree on top of that. So I've got some experience when it comes to radios, and the club felt that it was in the best interest that I take over the emergency coordinator position. That being said, I am very new to ham radio. I'm not new to radios in general, but very used to amateur radio, or very new to ham radio. So, one of the things I'm going to throw out right away is reach out to a local club. I first got into ham radio for storm spotting. I became a certified Skywarn storm spotter in, I believe it was May of this year, May 2020, if you're watching this further down the line. And I learned that we could better communicate with National Weather Service through radio. So I started reaching out and thinking about, I want to become a ham radio operator. It's great. Awesome. Where do we get started? The first thing you're going to find out when you look up is you need to get licensed. And that can throw people a bunch of different directions. I'm going to tell you to reach out to your local club for any directions. Well, how do you know if you have a local club? ARRL.org, ARRL.org will get you in touch with a local club. For my club, the Newton Amateur Radio Association, that was my EC that I just took over from. Pointed me in all the right directions. Another wonderful piece of website to go to is hamstudy.org. They will give you free instruction for technician, general, and extra class licensing. And they have resources to find out where you can sign up for online testing or in-person testing as it's advertised. The clubs around here don't typically advertise for in-person testing, so you might have to reach out to individual clubs. I don't believe that Des Moines Club, who I talked to someone yesterday from the Des Moines Club, they haven't put theirs online, but they are doing a testing here, I believe, all levels. I think they have 3 extra VEs over there. So, reach out to the local club. 1, you'll get in touch with someone that knows a lot more about ham radio than you do at the current moment. And 2, they'll be able to point you in any direction, any number of resources, which is what you need. The number 2 thing you're going to want to think of is a radio. Well, before you can get licensed, the one thing you can remember is you can have a radio, you can tune a radio, you just can't talk on the radio. You can listen all you want. 1, they're never going to know you're listening. And 2, they're never going to, if you don't transmit, they're never going to know. And knowledge is power. There's people that I've talked to on the air that listened, I think they said 2 or 3 years before they went out and got licensed. So, a cheap, and I'm going to go with cheap. This is the route I went. A cheap option for starting out in ham radio. I will get you started for under $50 given with equipment. At the time of this recording, there's currently no fee from the FCC to get licensed. If you're watching this down the road, they may have applied a $50 fee, which they have talked about doing. So, for equipment wise, to get started, under $50, and I don't have the stock antenna, you're going to get yourself a Baofeng UV 5R radio. These will run $20 to $30 on Amazon. They're a Chinese knockoff, dual band UHF VHF. That's all great for working local. But I'm going to tell you right now, the antenna on that thing is not great. So I'm going to recommend you instantly go get an upgraded aftermarket antenna. There is a brand called Signal Stick, which is, I think all proceeds off Signal Sticks go to hamstudy.org, so they're a good option. I went with the Abri style, the Tactical style antenna. And I can tell you there is a night and day difference between this 18-inch antenna and the stock rubber ducky antenna that came with the radio. I'm also going to insist that immediately you cut yourself a pigtail for the UV5R. This will also help your quality. So putting this together, my pigtail, and then my antenna. We'll get this put up real quick. Now, I also like to keep my radio on my belt. So another thing that I got right away was a detachable microphone. I like to run with my radio on my belt and the microphone up clipped on my chest, up around my neck. It's the way I operate at work. So I made my personal radio the same as what I'm used to at work. And I'm not going to turn it on right now because when I came down here to record it, someone was having a nice rag chew on the local repeater, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're here, there for. But I don't want to eavesdrop and broadcast their conversation over YouTube. So, yes, first, contact a club, get an Elmer. That's number one. Elmer is kind of, I don't want to say a master of radio. They're experienced. So right now, I'm kind of guiding you. I'm being your Elmer if you're taking this device seriously, if that makes sense. The next thing you're going to want to do is actually go get licensed. Get licensed and get on the air. The hardest part about radio is the first transmission. I made my first call on that radio. I was sitting in the vet's parking lot while the wife was running the dog in for procedure, and I made a quick 5-minute QSO conversation with my Elmer, who at the time was the Club EC. So that just get on the air. And if you're scared to get on the air, find a way to make it comfortable. If you have an Elmer locally, go out with them or talk with them and arrange a short little conversation. There's nothing wrong saying that you can't pick up your phone, message your Elmer and say, hey, I'm about to get on this repeater, or I want to talk to someone on 25 Simplex. Can you get on, and arrange it that way? Just get on the air. The quicker you get on the air, the more frequently you get on the air, the easier it is to do. Next thing, I'm going to highly encourage you to upgrade to general or extra as quick as possible, if not the same day you test for technician. This radio is short range, UHF, VHF radio. This radio alone, I can get maybe 10 miles with a external antenna. And I mean external, I have a 5/8 or a half wave UHF VHF mag mount on my car, which I used to tie this into. I was getting roughly 15 miles. This is a 5-watt radio, definitely short range. I now have upgraded my car radio to a 25-watt radio, or 20-watt radio, not 25. And I get about 50 miles out of that. But for starting out, definitely, this is cheap. It'll hit you a repeater 5 miles away. It'll do simplex 5 miles away. Definitely a good cheap way to get into it. But upgrade immediately. One, if they do implement these fees, which it sounds like they're going to, you're going to have to pay an upgrade fee then too. So if you can go in, as far as I understand it, test right away to general, you'll only have to pay $50 for the one-time license application instead of the $100 or $150 if you went to extra all the way on your first test, or eventually go to extra, sorry. Instead of paying that $150 50 times for each license class, then, you know, it's a lot cheaper and more affordable that way. Another thing that opens up to you for going to general is HF work. Now, there is no cheap, easy way to get into high frequency. And for those of you that don't know the difference between HF and VHF, UHF, higher the frequency, lower the distance reached. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but in your studies, you'll see how that makes sense. HF, or high frequency, bounces off the atmosphere, while UHF, VHF tends to go through it. There are some exceptions to that, but again, in your studies, you'll hear about those exceptions. HF allows you to do worldwide communications. Now, you can get in HF somewhat affordable, under 500 generally, but you're talking about low power rigs. The cheapest I'm going to recommend for anyone getting into HF is probably a Yaesu FT891, which if you'd like to see what one of those looks like, check out my last Parks on the Air video. A Wolf River Coils TIA mini antenna, and that'll get you on HF for under $1,000. Works great. Now, if Wolf River Coils antenna is still too expensive for you, you can go with a end-fed option, but you're gonna need a tuner. A good tuner will run you another couple $100. So, I mean, you can forget the tuner and you can get the better antenna, or you can go a $60 antenna with the end-fed option and then require a tuner. Here in my shack, I'm running a Nelson Antennas 9-to-1 transformer on an 80-foot wire. This is an end-fed style. I will be showing that if I'm not already showing that on screen right now. Hanging off my house with a 50-foot roll of coax coming down to my basement, which is where I'm at, which is why I'm wearing a jacket, even though you can hear the furnace in the background. It's a little chilly down here. That gets me out fairly well. I would recommend probably 12 gauge wire. I'm using 16 gauge right now. It's a little thin, so I need to actually upgrade my wire. We're in winter in Iowa. I'm getting out just fine. I can talk to coast. I can hit Canada and Mexico on a regular basis. I'm okay with I'm okay with what I have right now. I'm probably gonna upgrade here in the not so distant future, but that's just getting started. If you don't have the money to go to HF, these licenses are good for 10 years. If you can go into your technician's exam and test all the way up to extra, even though you're not going to have the money to get into that far right away, do it anyway. Because in 10 years, in that 10-year period, you could save up some money, you can get a rig together, and then instead of having to go back and test then for the higher class license, you already have it. So test up as quick as you can. If you don't know what you're doing, reach out to your local club. And there's videos. Hashnasi, Ham Radio Crash Course, KAMRD. There's another one I watch a lot up in Wisconsin. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting you. My KB9 VBR. There we go. KB9 VBR antennas. All great resources for getting into ham radio. Now, if you want to just watch some storm spotting and you want to watch a lot of Parks on the Air activations, hey, I'm your guy, because during the winter you're going to see a lot of Parks on the Air. This is kind of an impromptu video just because I'm going to be short some content here coming up, and I want to continually give you guys content. So that being said, I'm your guy for Parks on the Air. KAMRD does a lot of Parks on the Air stuff, but he does a lot more than that. He's a lot more into the technical aspect of that. So that being said, I want to thank you all for coming and watching this kind of impromptu getting started in ham radio. My experience has been really great. The ham radio community is all inclusive. If you're a lone wolfer, you're good in ham radio. If you need a lot of help, you're golden in ham radio. You ask a question on any of these major YouTubers that I just mentioned, KB9VBR, Ham Radio Crash Course, KAMRD. If you ask a question on any of their pages, they will get you the answer or point you in the right direction. If you ask me a question, I'm going to do the same thing. The ham radio community is awesome for all ages. I have a 12-year-old son, which you briefly see in some of my videos. I try to keep him out because my ex-wife, I don't know how she feels about him being all over the internet. He's in a ham radio, and there are technician and general class operators as young as, I believe, 6 worldwide. So this is literally for all ages. It's a lot of fun, and I highly encourage, if you want to get into this, to get into it and explore it. That being said, I have nothing else to add. So I'm Ben, K0BJJ, for Spotter Jetting. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.